and it's not a robot. So there is actually someone here. So let me stop my video, and then we'll get right into this session here. All right, so good morning, everybody, and welcome to the future of roadway construction and maintenance. One of the first things I want to point out is that when it comes to drones, or the more correct term is UAVs, which is the proper terminology, they are tools, not toys, like you see kids playing in the background or in the backyard. And we continue to find new ways to use them, some based on creativity and some actually based on necessity, where we face a problem and that seems to be the most likely benefit. In fact, UAVs are used to perform dangerous and difficult tasks safely and efficiently. They were used to assess the flooding of the Red River in the upper Midwest. They were used to help California battle the wildfires, and they are being used to study everything from hurricanes in the Gulf of Mexico, tornadoes in the Great Plains, and even volcanoes in Hawaii. So I think it would be important to start talking about a little bit of a background about UAVs. So although drone is commonly used, UAV, or unmanned aerial vehicle, or UAS, unmanned aerial system, is the correct terminology. As a matter of fact, some people frown upon the term drone. I just thought I would use one that's more commonly used. The reason they're not called drones, because drones basically say that they don't have any intelligence. They can't think, they can't do anything complex, but they are more than just a pilotless vehicle. UAVs denotes the actual aerial vehicle, whereas the UAS includes the vehicle, the technology on the ground, and the person at the controls. So that's an entire system. The UAV is actually just the aircraft. And apparently there's nothing unmanned about an unmanned system, because there's somebody, man or womaning them. But UAVs have been used since the early 2000s, but were approved for commercial use about 4 years ago, going on 5 now, in 2016. In that year, it was found that no state transportation agency were using UAVs on a daily basis. And why would they? It just came out. Now, however, 36 states have certified UAV pilots on staff. And even if they do not have their own pilots, they actually outsource it. So according to a survey by AASHTO, UAVs are used in some way by public transportation agencies in every state. It also shows a sharp increase in use over the last few years, thus reflecting rapid adoption of the technology by governments. So other industries outside of transportation using UAVs include farming, real estate, state police, and of course, fire and rescue. So there are 3 primary types of UAVs. They include multi-rotor, fixed wing, and tethered. And we'll talk about each one of those. Each one of those has its own strengths, weaknesses, advantages, and disadvantages. And it's important to match the capabilities of the type of UAV to the intended application and purpose to get the most of the benefit. So if you need one type of craft, but you get another one, it may not work out. It'd be like a round peg into a square hole, or vice versa. So when people typically think of a drone or a UAV, typically one of the first things that comes to mind is the military application, of which you see on the screen here, from the Reaper drones, the Predator drones. But we would not be discussing military UAVs in this presentation, other than to say that outside of the military, it is illegal to weaponize a drone, okay? Don't put any weapons on your UAV. You will go to jail. Although a few civilians have tried, like the instance where someone in Farmville, Virginia, mounted a shotgun on one. And then another young man was trying to peep into an older lady's windows, and she pulled out a shotgun and shot it down. So they were, of course, arrested for doing all of those things. So do not weaponize your UAV. So the first type of UAV that comes to mind, and one of the more common ones that you see on a regular basis, primarily due to its use of hobbyists, is the multi-rotor drone, which you'll see here. This is a variation of one, some having closed propellers to make it a little bit more quieter. and the number of rotors can vary as well. Of course, more rotors, the bigger the rotors, and adding those two together will increase the size and, of course, lifting capabilities, and, of course, the price. So, benefits of a multi-rotor drone, almost like a helicopter, includes nimbleness, the ability to fit into tight spaces, hovering capabilities, and the ability to execute vertical takeoffs and landings. They also include cameras and a gimbal system, which you see hanging beneath there, um, for virtually 360-degree rotation. In many instances, though, when you're using something like that, it is helpful to have a UAV pilot and a camera operator instead of one person attempting to do both. So when you think of some of these car commercials that you see speeding down the highway and they're showing the tires real close to the car, that's a drone running beside that thing, and a pilot flying it and a camera operator operating the camera. The next type of drone, similar to the military, is a fixed wing. So when one thinks of that fixed wing, again, we probably would think of the Predator or the Reaper drone. Um, this is a civilian version of a military UAV. Notice it does not have any weapons on it. All right. Uh, benefits of this type is that it can cover more area faster than a multi-rotor UAV. Think about an airplane versus a helicopter. Helicopters can just straight out fly and they can fly fast, but they're not going to outrun a fighter jet. It's just not going to happen. But the downside is that it lacks nimbleness and the ability to hover and execute vertical takeoffs and landings. So you have to keep that in mind when you're kind of trying to do this. The benefit of this one versus the other one is that you may have a short duration because of battery life with the multi-rotor drone, but you may have a long flight duration with this one. So this is a tethered drone. Notice it looks just like a multi-rotor drone, except that it's tethered. You can see the little line coming down off the bottom, holding it in place. So this is primarily the only difference between a multi-rotor and a tethered drone is that it is tethered. Tethered drones dramatically reduce technical and human errors in crashes and flights. Yes, people do crash them. I'll talk a little bit later about our land surveyor program that we started at VDOT. We're coming to the end of the first pilot of the program. So a tethered UAS or UAV has a reduced spatial area where it can fly because it's tethered. And because of the flying restriction the tether creates and the greater control, their operation does not require a trained pilot because it's not going to go anywhere. Other benefits include longer flying time due to the ability to keep it attached to a power source. So just imagine you start this thing up and you let it go up 150 feet or so, and it just hovers there. Now you can move the camera around and whatever else, so you're kind of limited to your space. So what are the benefits of using a UAV or a UAS? Well, there are many, and more being realized every day. Some of the benefits include gains in safety and innovation, reduced time to complete tasks. You know, we say time is money. Cost avoidance, such as reduction in claims using weekly photo documentation, reducing risky activities, inventory control, such as the ability to measure volume at multiple stock locations in one flight, hazardous spill investigation documentation, and even work zone traffic monitoring. So let's take a closer look at a couple of these. All right. So one of the advantages of a UAV is that it is less expensive than traditional solutions. One way it does this is through photographic documentation of project progress. Think of time-lapse photos used on nature shows. So every day or several times a day at certain times, you can go out and the same place, fly up at about the same area, take a photograph and do that every day so you can see if we are on pace to complete a project on time. UAV saves time. So we talked about saving money. Now we're talking about saving time. One way it does this is allowing you to see into the future. Now this looks like a little model set built, but it's actually a real photo. Aerial views over a period of time allows for better site management and the prevention of large problems. As the mantra goes, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So, as an example, if we are running as an Army Ranger through the woods, and I got Robin out serving as point person, and I got my compass, and I'm trying to get her to go through. I can't see her but so long as she goes deeper into the woods, and I can't see really what's a mile ahead. But the further I climb up a tree or send a drone up into the air, the more I can see into the future. So if I see a storm coming, for example, or if I see a train coming, or I see a hole opening in the earth, I'll be able to see that faster than I would had I not had that perspective. This is as an example of how much area a UAV can cover compared to traditional methods of walking. So take a look at the car near the top right corner for scale. So imagine you're having to walk all of that, but a UAV can actually save a lot of time in doing so. Risk reduction is yet another advantage of using a UAV, as it can be the perfect tool for any job that is dangerous, dirty, or both. And we all know that we do a lot of each of those in Department of Transportation and roadway construction. So monitoring hazards, inventory, obstructions, and potential OSHA violations can complete it much faster than walking the site. And I'll give an example of this on the next slide here. It provides utility, especially in regard to safety. So this is a rock slide here. And a year or so back, I think it was close to 2 years ago. We had a rock slide in I-81 on I-81 out in our Salem district, and it actually blocked the road. And so that district sent roadway workers out, they sent inspectors out, they sent maintenance operators out to start cleaning the debris, because we got to keep the roads open, correct? Well, when they went out there and started clearing the roads, the rocks started sliding again, putting the roadway workers in danger. So the leadership had to pull them out of the way. So now they were stuck between, we need to clear this road, but we don't even know if it's safe to clear the road. And so they said, we need to get up higher to see if we're in danger of another rock slide. And they did not want to send anybody up there to climb it. So they said, you know what? We can get a drone or a UAV to go up there. The problem was we didn't have one, and we didn't have a pilot. So between, I want to believe and remember, it was Radford and UVA. And I think they either got the UAV from Radford and the pilot from UVA, or vice versa. But either way, they had to scour from way out in the western part of the region, and one college to get a UAV and another college to get a pilot, to go up and do that. And so it actually saved lives. It kept people out of danger. And then it let them know it was even safe to kind of get this out. So once again, dirty, dangerous, or both. So when it comes to ideas for use, UAV's use is virtually only limited by your own imagination. Companies are finding new uses for these things every single day. Some examples include North Carolina searching for endangered birds, Utah looking for potential avalanches. So when the snow season and whatever is open, to keep people safe. And Kansas is using them, believe it or not, to identify sick cows by using thermal cameras to record heat signatures on the cows, so they can figure out who to isolate and when to move out, and so on and so forth. So here's a couple of ideas here. UAVs can measure snow and other elements to keep a real-time check on roadway conditions. They can also measure water runoff and flooding. I know we don't like to see that snow picture here because it's getting close to that time of the year, and I think the Farmer's Almanac says we're supposed to have a big snow season, and the first snowfall, we'll see if they're correct, it's supposed to be in November. So get your lottery tickets and your scratchers, and put in your friendly wagers to see if that's actually going to be the case. Um, Minnesota DOT is using drones to help anticipate where crews might need to spend extra time on repairs during flooding once the waters recede. So once again, just another novel idea. Um, UAVs can reduce disturbance to the public traffic and road hazard to human inspectors during the survey. So you think about your construction inspectors and consultant inspectors going out and inspecting the roads. Traditional means of road inspection include regular periodic inspection of roads, where it's conducted in order to detect potential damage, of which of course is performed by the people who can monitor the roads and infrastructure, acquire images, collect data, and assess the stresses. However, this traditional way of data collection, on your feet, walking every single mile and every single meter and feet, has many drawbacks, such as it being labor intensive, um, time consuming, and potentially a safety hazard. Um, Typically, an engineer must walk every inch of pavement while taking handwritten notes that locate problem areas, which takes a tremendous amount of time. The result is a remediation plan featuring blocked out areas that represent locations of cracked pavement, but there's often an issue as the actual cracks can extend past these areas over time, affecting and impacting the accuracy of the drawing. So UAVs can fly over large site areas in a fraction of the time it would take someone to walk them, capturing high quality photos and videos of paved areas with incredible detail. So that's just, again, another use and idea for UAVs. Um, Bridge inspections and structure inspection is another one. Bridge inspectors currently rely on rope systems and special inspection vehicles. You're talking about aerial lifts to assess obscure or dangerous areas. So imagine getting underneath this bridge here. Nebraska DOT wanted to explore the use of drones to see if better quality inspections could be achieved with increased safety to the public and inspectors, yet in a shorter period of time and with less costs. So considering the potential benefits, they piloted this project to further evaluate the use of the drones for bridge inspections. Um, and again, I think it's Montana Dot estimates that a standard bridge deck inspection takes 8 hours with a crew of 4 people and heavy equipment, costing at an estimated.
They lock the doors.
Did someone say something?
Had that receipt.
Jamie, I believe that was an accident.
I do.
Oh, okay. All right. But they estimated that a standard bridge deck inspection takes 8 hours, and with a crew of 4 people and heavy equipment costing an estimated $4,600. The same inspection with a drone takes 2 people, just 2 hours, at an estimated cost of $250. So just some comparison there.
Call the microphone, Deb.
Where?
Microphone's working.
Jamie, you can continue.
Okay. So traffic monitoring. UAVs are becoming an attractive solution for road traffic monitoring because of their mobility, their low cost, and broad view range. They can be equipped with different types of payloads like high definition cameras, thermal cameras for day and night surveillance. They can also provide on-the-ground situational awareness in case of emergencies like road accidents, which we'll discuss next, oil leaks, etc. They can also collect evidence for the same. The data collected can be analyzed to improve traffic flow and safety. So imagine if there's an accident on the road, or even if somebody passed out in a gym or in a grocery store. The first thing you want to do is assess the situation to see if it's safe for you to even come in and provide assistance. And UAVs can actually help with that. So when disaster strikes, this is just yet another way that UAVs can assist. The more officials know about an impacted area, the more effective their response. So because UAVs can be quickly deployed over a disaster zone, responders are using them to produce 3D maps, scan for victims, and assess damaged infrastructure. These, among other applications, have cemented the role of UAVs as an essential part of emergency disaster response. I know with, in Virginia, the state police have been incorporating them quite a bit to clear accidents much faster than they could without them. So responders use UAVs to provide rapid situational awareness with the mapping technology and imagery I just mentioned. They help firefighters help identify hot spots and assess property damage, capture imagery for communications and news coverage, search for survivors, and create before and after maps of the impacted areas.
Jamia, we have a question.
Okay.
How do you get around restricted airspace issues in the area, such as the Nova district?
Actually, we're going to talk about that when it comes to the administration.
Great.
There are some ways to get over some of that, but with the airspace, it's going to be down to licensing. It's going to be down to training. It's going to be down to getting special permits at certain times to do that. So we'll talk about that here in a little bit in the administration part. But that's actually a good question. And when I developed this presentation, we're going to give all the good stuff, but there's always that downside of it. This is just another picture of an accident. An 18-wheeler ran into a little restaurant there, and they're using a UAV to kind of assess the damage around there, see if any power lines are down, see where the crews are needed, see if they need to adjust traffic, so on and so forth. When surveying challenging terrain, UAVs make it no longer necessary for human operators to physically assess and measure points in hazardous or difficult to reach locations. We're going to always need surveyors, but in clear areas where it takes so much time to do it, this can be a good tool in their toolbox. So while traditional surveying methods require meticulous measurements, preparation, and planning, UAVs can capture comparable data in dramatically shorter timeframes. So 2 years ago, I was taking a look at our agency to determine, where our risks were. And we started looking at surveying, and we realized we had a lot of people that were well over 30 years that could walk out whenever they needed to. But we didn't have a lot of people that could replace it because it's a highly technical job. And we started looking at the agency, and we created an apprenticeship, a holistic apprenticeship model. And we started looking at which occupations should become apprenticeable or considered to be apprenticed. And so we looked at, okay, does this occupation does it have high turnover? Well, we didn't, and they stayed in the position for a long period of time. Is there potentially mass exodus of retirement? Possibly. So that's another reason for us to start this land surveyor technician pilot program. Is there a lack of a community college or university program at the time? Yes. Is it highly technical and takes a long time to get somebody up to speed? When you consider it takes about 5 years to get someone licensed as a surveyor, we were already kind of behind the times. And our land surveyors actually go through the UAV piloting process each year in the apprenticeship program. Now, granted, we have to bring in someone from outside because we're not allowed to use our own people to do so. But we actually got a couple of them who are already licensed to fly the drones. So this is an example of the LiDAR mapping capability of a UAV used in surveying. If nothing else, just note the significant area of coverage. So now, as we move into this third phase of the presentation, we're going to start talking about some of those considerations that one of the people typed about. We've talked about how UAVs and UASs can improve processes, improve accuracy, improve speed and effectiveness, reduce cost and risk. However, a successful program is only as good as its planning. All that information is great, but you got to get the UAV. There's a lot of things that you have to have in order to do that. So before we move on, using your chat box, what are some things that need to be considered or that you think needs to be considered before implementing a UAV program? Except for that one gentleman who already had a good question, so he's off the hook, or she's off the hook, whoever wrote that. So I'll give that a couple of a minute or so, I guess. Hopefully people are typing in something. And if not, then we'll move on. Anything coming through, Alexis or Robin?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that one more time?
Yes. Has anyone used the chat to
Yes.
share some things that need to be considered when purchasing, implementing, and managing a UAV or UAS system?
Yep. So we have hardware capacity, runtime, money, range, budget, overheard utilities and nearby airports, information processing, sensors, information processing again, training for staff, certifications in order to operate, video storage. And somebody asked, can I find other work for the drone pilot?
Can they find other work for the drone pilot? Meaning other jobs to fly the UAV, or meaning that's not their primary job? Meaning, okay, his primary job is, say, construction inspection, and his part-time job is flying the UAV, or that they hired a full-time UAV pilot and they need more work for him outside of that. I'm not sure I understand the question. Hopefully they will chime in as we go along here, and I can try to address that the best I can. That's
Sorry, Jamie. They clarified to keep them full time for our drones.
Yeah. Typically, I know for us, we outsource because the challenge is going to be, unless they're flying 40 hours a week, which is highly unlikely, then it may just need to be a part-time job, unless they have other skill sets. Like if you hire a full-time UAV pilot and they just happen to be a land surveyor technician, then you can kind of match that up, and then he could do other things outside of that. I know that's the one thing that we're looking at in workforce development as far as the future of workplace is, what does the future workers look like? And this is a great example of that we used to hire a specialist to do one job and one job only. But now we are realizing that even in the medical field that we need more generalists, or I like to use the hybrid model that can do multiple things. So this may be a great example of bringing in somebody who could to do multiple things. But right now, yeah, unless you got enough work for them to be flying 40 hours just doing that. Keep in mind, there's some things behind that. You can use them to train other people if your agency allows them to do so. Training other people and helping them with the Part 107 licensing exams, going out and doing presentations. There are other things that you can do, but it's going to be tough to keep them busy 2,000 hours with just UAVs, unless they're used for like emergency management or something like that, and helping with accidents and things like that. But typically, even on the police forces, they are licensed UAV pilots, but they have other jobs outside of that.
JBO, and outsourcing, do you set up annual contracts such as a JOC or a BOA?
It's going to depend on if you're a state agency. It's going to depend on the outsourcing company. I know for us, if we were to do that, some of the things that we would have to consider is VITA, the Virginia Information Technology Agency, because there's going to be software involved, and the software is going to be used on our systems. So there, it won't be a hard and fast rule with that. You might can do a request for proposal, for example, and maybe go through procurement. And but yeah, it's really gonna vary. I know we were working on something or taking something into consideration for some content management systems, and the company was already working for Homeland Security, and we said, well, we're probably going to need a certificate, and they were like, we can give you a certificate, but we're not going through all of this Vita stuff because we've already proven that we can do this. So it's really going to depend on that outsourcing people as well. And Homeland Security is going to be a part of that. IT security is going to be another part of that. So I'm going to try to get through this so I can leave time at the end to try to address that. So when some of the things you already mentioned, which type of camera, software applications, pilots, outsource or trained staff, licensing, FAA Part 107 certification is required to fly commercially. But you can also partner with a local college. And that's what we did with the land surveyor. We partnered with Tidewater Community College, who had just brought on a land surveyor tech program, but then they did not have the UAV aspect. So we had to hire somebody in who now is down at Fort Bragg teaching them. Performance. Weather. What type of UAV, what type of weather that you're going to be in, data link collision avoidance, terrain avoidance, IR sensors, cameras, so on and so forth. So that was very good feedback. Now, this is I won't say the meat and potatoes of this presentation, but you can't have any of those other things until you have this as a foundation. So one of the first things that you're going to need to do is establish a program foundation addressing a lot of those issues. So one of the first things you're going to have to do is determine their needs. Detailed planning at this stage is going to reduce future complications when deciding which equipment to purchase and how you're going to pitch the program. What type of missions are you going to be flying? Determine the missions which your drones will be used. And this is going to assist you in figuring out which one to buy. Your internal policy, the who, what, when, and how. So you're going to have to determine required qualifications and respective job responsibilities. We just talked a little bit about that. Identify the mission and mission statement and objectives. When you can and when you will deploy. Reasons for deployment of the UAV. Types of day, weather conditions. And then the how. How will it be stored? How will flight time and maintenance be documented? How will training be conducted? So all of those things. So when it comes to regulations, Part 107 is the first step towards a full integration. So proof of training and regulatory aspects and rules, Part 107 does not teach you how to fly. We figured that out the hard way, that you thought you got that Part 107, but no, this is more about the regulations, the altitude, where you can fly it, where you can't, that type of thing. Liability and responsibilities with Part 107 falls on the individual pilots. So now you got some insurance things you have to consider. Part 107 allows for daytime flight only without a special waiver or a certificate of authorization. And that certificate of authorization can also help you fly in areas like Nova. New York is really having a bear of a time trying to get all of their stuff online because everywhere you go, there's buildings and people. Part 107 allows for operation under 400 feet. It allows for operation within visual sight, line of sight for the operator. So if you're the pilot and you're up 400 feet, that's your ceiling. And you can fly out as far away from yourself as you can, as long as you can continue to see it. Now, some people have tried to overcome this, or I guess circumvent this, by putting another spotter way off in the distance and to tell them what they see, but that's not legal. And you cannot fly over people with just Part 107. So this is just some ideas on things that you have to consider as it relates to administration. The specific goals, your return on investment. If you don't think you're going to have a big positive return investment, it may not. We had the gentleman, my VDOT buddy. I haven't met him, but he's a VDOTer, and you talk about risk assessment. What are all the risks that are going to be involved in here? The management plan. You're going to have SOPs, checklists. How much money is it going to cost? Scalability is so very important. So many people buy something for now, like they'll buy their house when they're young, but they never anticipate kids. Well, now here come 2 or 3 kids, and now they're still in a 2-room house or bedroom house. People will buy a car, but they may keep it 5, 7, or 10 years. And so if you buy a car at 50 and you keep it 10 years, you're going to be 60, or you're going to be able to get in and out of that car at 60, because Father Time is undefeated. And even when you buy a computer, do you buy the computer just for the next year? No, you want to think about the next 3 to 5 years. And it's the same thing with this. Okay, you know what you want to use it for, but start thinking about other ideas that you can use it for. Costs and budgets are a very, very, very big part of this. A lot of people mention that, but the budget should include all financial factors, to include not just the selected aircraft, but the estimated maintenance costs, the pilot training, the licensing, the insurance, the additional batteries, to name a few. And oh, by the way, you're going to have to get new propellers on these things. And what about all the software? Yeah, it's nothing without the software. And because now you got all this fancy information, and now you need to transfer it somewhere. You're going to need the space for that. You're going to need the security for all of that, and determine who has access to it. So some selection criteria as it relates to the type of UAV. At the moment, DJI is the current leader in commercial UAV manufacturing and is preferred by many companies and organizations. But others include Unique, I should have put on the screen, Uvify, Hubsan, and Parrot. You want to consider your payload. You want to consider infrared, thermal, still photographs, video HD, 4K. You want to consider the flight speed at which all images and videos will be clear. If you got a fast drone and a slow camera, that doesn't match up very well. We talked about software. You're going to have fleet management if you got more than one. This is going to allow you to keep records and set job specifications. So DJI and Skyward, believe it or not, by Verizon are options. And if you're being alert, you'll start to see these Skyward commercials coming on by Verizon. Just like we have software to manage our equipment at transportation, this is a fleet management system specifically for UAVs. Other software like mapping and modeling. You got Pix4D and Drone Deploy are options for gathering imaging, for creating maps, while AutoCAD can help develop maps offline. Insurance. Do you want hourly insurance, annual liability coverage, annual liability and hull coverage? Or Global Aerospace is currently the leader for providing aviation and UAV insurance. Then what about the pilots? Are you going to outsource, or are you going to train? Who will need the training? So just some other things to consider. So here's some popular models that are being used in public safety right now. So as you can see, we mentioned DJI. DJI actually is the leading manufacturer in the country right now, actually in the world. And so this is just a breakdown. I just put 4 models here to kind of show you some difference in between in this matrix here. So for example, the top one, the cost is going to be anywhere from $5,000 to $15,000, depending on all the other things you add with it. It weighs 10 pounds, so it's pretty heavy. And look at that speed, 50 miles per hour. And that flight time, 27 to 38 miles per hour. So if you're flying all out, you're probably going to get that low end of 27. If you're flying it a little bit slower with not as much of a payload, you'll probably get the high, that 38. Then you got the Inspire, that's 1,900, 7 pounds, still 45 miles per hour. But look at that flight time, it's just almost cut in half. So you get what you pay for to some degree. So you just want to match up your budget, your restrictions, what you plan to do with it with something like this. The Mavic Pro, you hear that a lot. That's $1,000. It's very, very light, 45 miles per hour with great flight time. So just some things for consideration. So here's just a cost saving example as we're near the end here. Conventional method of surveying on the left and drone implementation. And this is just from one of the DOTs. So that conventional method, they had 42 surveyors, $1,200 a day for 15 days, and it cost them $378,000. Once they implemented the drone just for the surveying, they had 7 UAS pilots, which many of them were the surveyors, but $550 a day and half the time at $34,650. So the drone implementation in this instance realized 83% fewer staff, 54% per day reduction in spending, 50% fewer days, and a 91% decrease in total costs. Now, please note that the first year savings will not look exactly like this due to the cost of equipment purchase, setup fees, software, licensing, so on and so forth, if you were to do it in-house. But this is an example of when they went out of house. The one thing that I want to really hammer home here, and leaving 4 or 5 minutes for questioning, is that you want to start small and build from there. I like to tell my people all the time, you don't have to hit a home run. You just need to get on base. So if you're familiar with Agile, as far as a development system, they're not trying to knock it out of the park every time. They're trying to get further ahead at each iteration. And that's the thing that I want to hammer home here. You don't have to go out and spend all of the money and stress and have all these things. But just if you have clearance from your organization to do so, start small and build from there. And to remember that your current state of work outcomes, where you are right now in your outcomes, plus enabling technology with UAVs or other technology that you can think of, as a matter of fact, like Zoom or Teams or whatever else, will always equal your future state of work outcomes. And so the question becomes, what are your future state work outcomes, which will help you determine which technology you need to enable or implement. So I will say thank you for listening. We got about 5 minutes. I always like to be very respectful of the time that I've been provided, but we have about 4 minutes left if we have any questions that I can do my best to address based on my expertise.
You guys feel free to put your questions in the chat box and I can read them out to Jamie O.
Robin has a big smile on her face. I think she might have learned something. I hope so. It's so funny when our land surveyors and my 2 people over the apprenticeship program, when we had the people come in to train them on Part 107 and teach them how to fly and how to set a flight plan and waypoints and weather and humidity and crosswinds, all of that other good stuff. And one of the exercises where they had to fly the UAV right in front of a stop sign and take a picture, turn around and come back. So many of them was hitting that stop sign. It was hilarious. And it was just dropping out of the sky. But that was the first indication that Part 107 certifies you to fly the drone, but it doesn't teach you how to fly it.
All right, Jamie, we have 2 questions in the chat room and we have about 3 minutes left. So
okay, I'll see if I can answer.
Awesome. So the first one is, how do you advise folks that work near airports with the FAA restrictions?
How do you what?
How do you advise folks that work near the airports with the FAA restrictions?
Yes. Now, one of the first things you're going to have to do with the FAA restrictions is that you're going to have to get your Part 107, and then you're going to have to get a COA, that certificate, to help you with that. Now, they have what they call restricted airspace, but they have different types of restricted airspace. I'm trying to remember all the different ones. They have like I want to say a level 1 restricted airspace, a level 2, a level 3, and what it means, each one will tell you how high you can fly and how close to an airport that you can fly in. And so even with that, even with a Part 107, we actually had a consultant that was flying, and someone called the police. They came out, and because he was flying close to Richmond International, but he had already contacted the FAA. He had already contacted Richmond International. He already had his COA, his certificate of authorization. He had his Part 107. He had all of his stuff together. So it's going to be a partnership and a collaboration, because in that restricted airspace, you got one level, meaning you can't be within a certain miles of it. Then you have a second level restricted airspace, which will allow you to get a little bit closer. And then they have a third level, which will allow you to get in real close to that. The challenge in the Northern Virginia area is you got the White House, you got the Capitol. They don't even allow Air Force to fly over some of those areas. So in that regard, it's over, game over in that regard. But as long as you got your Part 107, your certificate of authorization, which allows you to fly at night and also allows you to fly over people, once you contact the FAA and that particular airport, they will help you figure out which certificate of authorization you need as far as what part of the airspace that you want to fly within.
Great. And Jamie, on that note, we're going to end this session, but just a reminder to all the listeners that if you remember, Alexa showed you that we have out all the PowerPoints in a PDF format in the files. And if you would like a copy of this PowerPoint presentation, that's where you can find it. But we thank everyone for coming out, and we'll see you in one of the upcoming sessions. Alexis, do you have anything you need to say?
Yep, so same thing as before. You guys are going to click the red leave button in the bottom right-hand corner. Please be sure to go to that drop-down menu in Talent LMS to select from 2A or 2B. Our next session starts at 10 o'clock, so you have about a 10-minute break, and we will see you then.
All right, thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Jamie, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Bye-bye.
Bye.